I'm meeting with Alan Lund today, and we have a story about contempt of court and contempt sanctions. Now, I want to say before we go any farther, this is not a video made for the sake of rubbing anyone's nose in anything. This isn't made maliciously, and Alan has been rather courageous in agreeing to come here. Not because he's going to get in trouble for this video, at least he shouldn't, but because his experience is, you hear a lot of lawyers talk about what you can do, but then they're a little light on real world examples. I wanted to show you that they really do exist. Alan is not my client, okay, but we are friends, and so his experience that I happen to know about is worthwhile if you're a parent who is being denied your parent time, communication with your kids, or if there are other things going on with you and your children under your decree of divorce that your ex is not complying with. This is a success story. That's really what it comes down to. So, Alan, give us a little background as to what were the problems that led you to seek contempt?
So I've been divorced for 8 years, and it's just slowly over time gotten worse and worse. So at first it was kind of a phone call here or there. Then it became,
a missed phone call here.
Right,
or there.
a missed, yeah. And so then, but then it slowly became one day here or there, missed parent time. Then it became weekends of missed parent time.
Full weekends.
And then that stayed the same for about 3 years. So about every couple months or so, I would miss my parent time that was mine, that was in the decree.
Through no fault of your own. It was
Right.
just denied to you.
Yeah, just flat out denial of my parent time. So that went on for about 3 years, and then last spring, she just flat out denied me all parent time, all communication for 3 months straight until we went to the court and got emergency relief sanctions through a writ of assistance.
Right, but it didn't end there.
No.
Okay. So now some people are going to ask, and fairly, well, why didn't you go to court the first time your first weekend was denied? You could do that, can't you?
We could do that.
Yeah.
And I actually, the first weekend that I was denied parent time, I talked to several lawyers, and
including me.
yeah, and all of them kind of said the same thing. You'll get a contempt of court, you'll get your 3 days back, but it'll cost you between $2,000 and $5,000 to do that, depending on how long it takes to do that. So I looked at it as, is it worth $1,000 a day to get that time back? And at that
Now
time,
that takes guts for him to say that, because there's a lot of, isn't the time with your children priceless? No, it has a price. And when you have to get an attorney's help and you're saying to yourself, I don't have $3,000, it was just a weekend. Look, I'm not saying I don't value the time, but that's $3,000 I could be spending on other things, including my children. You have to make that calculus. And frankly, I think that most judges and commissioners understand that if you feel like if I let one weekend go, then it'll establish a precedent. Yeah, that argument can be made, but I don't think it would be a very persuasive argument. Now, mind you, if you let all of your parent time slip away and you don't complain, and you don't protest, and you don't send a text message or an email, and you don't make a police report. A police report. You can call the cops over to your ex's house and make an ass of yourself, but it probably will do more harm than good. But there's nothing wrong with calling up the police to say,
right,
my ex denied me parent time, would you please give me my incident number, so there's evidence that you made a report. All right.
and I did that. I probably have, there's other incidents, but I probably have close to 50 police reports through this time.
Wow.
Just because at major times when I was denied parent time, I felt it was appropriate to get a police report to show that I had driven out there, that I was there, that I
Right.
wanted the time.
That you'd made the efforts, and so, because that way if an ex tries to say, oh, I didn't deny parent time, he or she just never bothered to show up. You can say, no, I've got a report to the police. Why is it important to call the police? It's not because the police are so important, it's that they are neutral parties that will make a report in the course of doing their job. We're not saying we actually saw him there, although sometimes the police did, but it's like he claims that he's trying. So why would somebody blow off parent time and then report to the police that it's not happening? It just doesn't make sense, and that's good evidence. In fact, did you ultimately use this evidence when
Yes.
you finally got some relief? And we're getting to that. I know you want to find out. Okay, so it's a lot of money, and so what was the decision you decided to make? How did you decide to proceed? I'm not going to go after her the first time. It's expensive. So what was your plan?
So after talking to multiple attorneys and other friends that have been through similar things, it was to gather evidence, to document every time that she denied me parent time, and I made sure I texted her, emailed her every time and said, this is my parent time according to the decree, and every time she would say, well, she said different things at different times, but
they were all lame excuses,
right.
We can say that. Now let me stop here. One other thing that's interesting. When he says gathering evidence, sometimes you have to get some evidence, right? You can't get a contempt of court sanction without evidence that your ex is in contempt. But this isn't just a matter of having evidence, it's also a matter of the volume and quantity of evidence. In fairness, I can understand why some judges and commissioners, and let me tell you, this happens a lot. If everything had been smooth for 3 years, and then one day, without any basis, your ex had denied you a weekend, and it was because she actually in good faith believed it wasn't your weekend, and you went to court seeking contempt, would you have won?
No.
You probably would not have won, and the reason is not because you were wrong, because you can show it's like, look, here's the order, I was right, I was denied, this is contempt. But the courts have a soft spot for people, and they want to give people the benefit of the doubt. Some of you might want to look at it as kind of saying, well, this is strike one. So that's another reason, is that you could go to court once, not spend a bunch of money and have the finger wagged at your ex, but then never get anything back. Happen again, hey, that's strike two. In fact, you kind of decided to go that route.
Right.
All right, so when we talk about evidence, yes, you have to have a preponderance of evidence, and you have to have admissible evidence. But let me tell you, when it comes to contempt sanctions for denial of parent time and communications rights, you need a big boatload of evidence too, so much that the court simply cannot write it off as, oh, well, this is just kind of a misunderstanding.
Right.
All right. So, did you get a boatload of evidence?
Oh, I had a boatload of evidence.
He had a boatload of evidence. I mean, 50 police reports. And that's on top of other stuff as well.
Of texts. And so every time I was denied parent time, I made sure I had a text or email of hers denying me that parent time.
And that was simply hey, I had parent time, I showed up. By the way, did you ever say, don't bother coming?
Yes, a lot. She would say, don't bother calling the girls. They'll call you when they want to talk to you. Don't bother coming until they want to come. And so... Did
you ever just not come?
So, no. Like, I always made sure I had a text or email
saying that... Let's assume that she said, don't come this weekend. I won't let you have the girls. So did you just say, hey, look, this has gone on for years. I won't. I'll complain, but I won't bother showing up.
So I didn't show up every time because it is an hour drive.
It's an hour drive. Now, what if it was just a 20-minute drive? Here's another interesting thing. If someone's going to tell you, don't bother showing up because the kids won't be coming, at some point, you can actually stop beating your head against the wall and not come. Now, I would recommend you don't do that too often, because then it could be misconstrued as he didn't bother to show up. He didn't want to be there. So you did a good mix of, look, I'm simply not going to drive an hour to be denied every single time. But so I'll complain a little bit, saying, well, you say that you're not going to have the kids ready? Well, I'm not going to drive an hour to be denied. But then other times, even though you were pretty sure it wasn't going to happen, you'd make the trip too.
So usually I would make a trip when it was a big thing, like the beginning of summer or a big holiday or, some big thing, some big event during my life or the children's life.
I don't think that's a bad idea. In other words, if you don't have to just, if you did, that would be fantastic. But sometimes it's just not feasible, and sometimes it's just not financially possible. And so you don't feel like you have to show up every single time. But you did make the wise choice of documenting every time you were told. If she would call you on the phone, would you just yammer on the phone back? No, you would write back saying, you just called me on the phone to tell me don't bother. Because if it's not in writing, you don't have any evidence of it occurring. All right.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
So we got the writ of assistance. That made a big change. That's when the judge basically forced her hand to give me back my parent time, but it didn't even end when I got back my parent time.
Okay, so the writ of assistance, tell them real quickly what a writ of assistance did.
So a writ of assistance just basically, that's a piece of paper, and you're better at the legal things than I am, but It's basically a piece of paper that forces the police to get the kids from the other parent.
Right. It's like an order of the court. So it's a document issued by the court, signed by the judge, that tells law enforcement officers this person who has the writ of assistance is trying to enforce parent time. And if his ex-wife will not comply with the decree of divorce, you, officer or officers, are commanded and authorized to go forcibly remove the kids. Oh, I know, forcibly remove the kids. Isn't that terrible? Look, do you have to follow the writ of assistance? No, you don't need, just because you have one doesn't mean you must call the police. But let's face it, if you've got the right kind of, or I should say the wrong kind of ex-spouse, a writ of assistance, they're gonna damn you to hell, saying, it's like, I can't believe you had the police come in and rip the children from my bosom. Well, you know what? I wouldn't have had to do that if you just would have obeyed the decree of divorce in the first place.
Right.
So don't blame me for this writ of assistance. All right. Now, did you have to have the children torn from her bosom with the writ of, by enforcing the writ of assistance?
No, the judge was pretty clear to her attorney when we had the writ that if the kids weren't there, that there would be, I wasn't on the phone, so it was a phone conference with the judge, but I believe they said that there would be jail time if
so
the
see, in
kids
his
weren't.
situation, he got the writ issued saying, Madam, if you don't start playing ball, the writ will be enforced. But you never had to get to the point of calling upon the police to assist you.
So I did one time with the writ,
Okay.
but even then the police wouldn't enforce the writ. But it still gave me another tool to have to show the police and
the court, when you eventually went back to say, hey, I've tried to get along, that didn't work. I asked for a writ of assistance, which you issued, Your Honor. The police won't enforce it, and oftentimes the police will not enforce it. Don't be shocked by that. It's not fair, but don't be shocked.
Right. And it took like 7 police officers in a parking lot reading the writ of assistance before they said that they wouldn't enforce it.
Yeah.
So
And it was a setup from the beginning. They intended not to enforce that from the beginning. Alan doesn't know this, but they do this, they put on this same show every time. You'll show up, you'll have your decree, you'll have your writ, and then the officer will show up and claim that he doesn't understand, and then it'll be that the order doesn't appear to be correct, and how do I know it's a real order, and your ex says it's not your weekend, and then you get the sergeant, and then you get a bunch of other people showing up, and then really they're just trying to wear you down and make you give up, and then they'll just say, hey, there's nothing we can do. Do judges and commissioners get offended by that? Not in my experience. All right, anyway, so the writ of assistance, like you say, better than nothing.
Right.
Got the writ of assistance, that didn't particularly work, so you went back to court to say, hey, even despite the writ of assistance, I'm not getting my parent time and communication with the kids, so what happened next?
So then we filed an order to show cause with the court.
A motion for order to show cause, which is saying, I am moving the court to order my ex to come to court and have her show cause as to why she should not be found in contempt and not sanctioned for contempt. All right? Now, we already know the story. You've already laid it out. She was clearly in contempt of court.
Correct.
All right? So you went before the commissioner. The commissioner is a domestic relations commissioner, kind of like a judgette or a lower-ranking judicial officer who is not a judge. And they're to help relieve some of the pressure on the judge's caseloads. And so your commissioner said, I find evidence of contempt, and I'm going to certify this to the judge for a hearing on contempt. So then it went in front of your judge. What kind of a hearing was that? Was that on the phone?
No, so we went to court that day.
Yeah. And was that the kind of thing where the lawyers just got up and argued?
Some of it was, some of it wasn't.
Were there any witnesses that were called?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so this is what's known as an evidentiary hearing. Now, there are some aesthetes that will actually, that's not the right word. There are some highbrow people that will claim that every hearing in front of a court, whether it's a commissioner or a judge, is an evidentiary hearing. Well, if it's just high school debate, I would submit that's not really an evidentiary hearing. We're talking about a hearing before the judge where, although the attorneys did make arguments, you also got on the witness stand and testified.
So I didn't get on the witness
You could
stand.
have.
I could have. I could have been called.
Who were the witnesses that actually were called?
The only witness that we called was my ex-wife, and then we got up and my attorney questioned her, and she said, here are the 4 things that you have to be found, and she went through all of them, and she said, let's
talk about it. Did you know about, was there an order? Was there a valid order? Did you have notice of it? Did you have the ability to comply? And did you willfully refuse to comply? And so in the course of questioning, your lawyer was able to show, by talking to your ex-wife, that yes, there was a valid order, yes, your wife knew about the order, there was nothing that prevented your wife from ex-wife from complying, and she willfully disobeyed. Now, I'm sure your ex-wife tried to claim that she wasn't, and that she was trying to protect the kids,
Right,
and all that
that's
kind of
exactly. So she claimed that she was trying to keep the kids safe.
stuff. Yeah. Now, by the way, that's fair game. That's what happens when you question witnesses. Witnesses can lie on the witness stand. Did the judge find your ex-wife's testimony to be persuasive?
No.
Now, one of the interesting things, and correct me if I'm wrong about this judge didn't really want to hold anyone in contempt if he didn't have to.
Right.
And warned everybody, it's like, if you hold this hearing, go out and chat and try to work this out, because if you come in here and I find contempt, I'm not afraid to impose sanctions.
Correct. So at the very first part of the trial, he
It was
was
a hearing.
hearing,
Yeah,
sorry.
That's okay.
So at the very first of the hearing, he was very clear and said, when you're found in contempt in my courtroom, it is typically close to 30 days and a $1,000 fine. And the commissioner's already found that. He says, I've read through the minutes and I don't see anything here, unless there is something here that you're not telling me, that you will not be found in contempt today.
Now, by the way, he didn't have to do that, but I think that's very kind of judges to do, because what they're saying is not that they're afraid to hear the matter,
Right.
but just saying, look, I don't want to punish people if this can be worked out between two ex-spouses. Did it get worked out?
No. So
No.
we split for a little while. We tried to do an attorney, I guess, is it an attorney conference?
Oh, negotiations, conference, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the attorneys went back and forth, and we couldn't work it out. And so then that's when we said,
That's when
let's
you
go
had
to the hearing part of it. Where
The
you
judge
do
didn't
the-
buy what your ex-wife said. What did she end up getting sanctioned with?
So she got sanctioned with 20 days in jail, due immediate right then.
So they cuffed her and took her away right there?
Yeah. So they took her away right when he gave that sanction.
All right. How long did this take to get there?
3 years of
3
time.
years. If you'll play the long game, this can happen. It's not something you're going to get, even though you deserve it, it's not something you're going to likely get the first time, especially if it's just one weekend or one holiday or even a couple. Or it's something you could try. It may not be such a bad idea to go to court if you've got the financial means to do it. But Alan's story is an example of someone who succeeded because he was in the right and he played the long game. I mean, would that be
Yeah.
anything else that you would say to people that are going through this same problem, man or woman?
So it's very difficult. Like, she filed multiple DCFS cases. She tried to get a protection order against me, and all of those were dismissed. And so those were also evidence. So I don't think it was just the denied parent time that the judge saw. He saw multiple things of that. We've been back to court every year, and we have, there's been multiple things. This isn't the first time we've been in front of this judge. There were multiple things. It wasn't just denied parent time. I think it was a culmination of a whole bunch of things is why he decided to give that sanction.
Well, and kudos to the judge for doing that, not because I'm glad that Alan, my friend, succeeded, but because do you think that you're going to have any kind of denied parent time trouble in the future?
So, I don't know. Like, she's not I thought she would be a changed person coming out, and she's been worse than she was before.
Have you still had parent time denied?
No, I have not had any
Yeah.
parent time denied.
Right, finding other ways to jerk you around.
Right.
Again, so that's a cautionary tale as well. Be careful what you wish for, you might get it. That doesn't mean that, like you say, you hope that this will chasten this non-compliant ex, but that may actually just mean they trade one bad behavior for a different one.
Right.
But you've got your parent time more regularly now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here again. I appreciate you doing this. Were you out for revenge?
No.
Was this malice?
No.
No. You just wanted to live and let live.
I just wanted to see my kids when the decree says I should see my kids.
And his is an example, although it took way too long and cost way too much. This is a situation where the system eventually worked the way it should have. So thanks for being here, and thanks for watching.